3, 2, 1.
Have you ever wondered why you overthink every text? Why you apologize for everything? Why loud voices make your heart race? Why you're always waiting for something bad to happen? Or why love sometimes feels uncomfortable while chaos feels familiar? Maybe no one ever told you this. Sometimes those aren't personality flaws. Sometimes they're survivor skills. Today, we're talking about what abuse actually does to the brain, why your nervous system learned to survive the way it did, and most importantly, how healing is possible. Welcome back, my beautiful souls, to Becoming with Erica. This is a place where we heal out loud, grow through what tried to break us, and become everything God created us to be. Also, where science meets faith. Today, we're talking about something incredibly heavy: abuse, whether it's emotional, physical, sexual, verbal, spiritual, or growing up in a home where you never felt emotionally safe. This episode is for anyone who's ever wondered, why am I like this? My hope isn't to diagnose anyone. My hope is to help you understand your brain with compassion. I know that I struggled with this in many different ways throughout my life at many different seasons. So I could only imagine other people. They say somebody out there has it worse than you. And I'm like, oh, wow. I hope I see that person or meet that person because I would love to give them the biggest, greatest hug ever because they deserve it. So let's dive into the first truth. The brain has one primary job: keep you alive. And that means not happy, not confident, not successful, alive. If your brain believes something threatens your safety, it adapts, it changes, it literally rewires itself to survive. So let's lean into this a little more and do what I like to do and nerd out for a minute. Because I think understanding what's happening inside your brain can take away so much shame. Here's something I wish more people knew. Abuse doesn't just leave emotional scars. It can change the way your brain operates. Now, that doesn't mean your brain is permanently damaged. The brain is incredibly adaptable. It's constantly changing based on what we experience. That's exactly one of the God's greatest designs. Our brain can learn, adapt, and even heal. But when someone experiences abuse over and over, especially as a child, the brain begins asking one question over and over again: am I safe? And if the answer keeps coming back no, the brain starts reorganizing itself around survival. Think about that for a second. Instead of its energy exploring, learning, creating, or connecting, your brain begins spending most of its energy trying to predict danger before it happens. It's almost like your brain hires a full-time security guard whose only job is to watch for threat. That security guard is trying to protect you. But after trauma, it can become so alert that it starts seeing danger when you're finally safe. And that's why healing can feel confusing. Your life may have changed, but your brain is still operating from an old survival blueprint. The beautiful part is this, that the blueprint isn't your identity. It's an adaptation, and the adaptation can change. So let's meet the part of the brain that has been working overtime to protect you. First, let's talk about the amygdala. Think of the amygdala as your brain's smoke detector. Its job is simple: scan the environment, detect danger, and if it believes you're in danger, sounds off the alarm. In a healthy environment, the alarm goes off when there's a real threat. But when someone experiences repeated trauma or abuse, especially during childhood, the amygdala can become much more sensitive. It's like a smoke detector that used to go off only when there was a house fire, but now it goes off when you burn a piece of toast, a raised voice, a slammed door, footsteps coming down the hallway, an angry facial expression, unexpected silence, someone taking hours to text you back, or a conflict between people you care about. None of these things are automatically dangerous, but if your brain has learned that those moments once led to pain, the amygdala may sound the alarm before you've even had time to think. Have you ever noticed your heart racing before you even knew why? Your stomach dropping the moment someone changed their tone? Or feeling anxious because someone simply said, "We need to talk"? Ugh, I hate that one. We need to talk. Ooh, chills. That's your survival brain trying to protect you. Your brain isn't trying to make your life harder. It's trying to keep you alive. The challenge is that your brain doesn't always know the difference between what was dangerous and what is dangerous. It remembers patterns, and until those patterns are gently rewritten through healing, your brain may continue preparing for battle that are no longer happening. That's why healing isn't about telling yourself, get over it. Healing is about teaching your brain little by little that today is different from yesterday, that you're safe now, that not every raised voice leads to harm, that not every disagreement ends in abandonment, that not every silence means rejection. Your amygdala learned to protect you. Now, with time, support, and healing, it can also learn when it's okay to stand down. Now, let's move to another incredible part of the brain, the hippocampus. The hippocampus is like your brain's filing system. Its job is to organize experience into memories. It helps answer questions like, when did this happen? Where did this happen? Is this happening right now? Or is this something from my past? Under normal circumstances, the hippocampus neatly files away memories so your brain can recognize that an event is over. But trauma changes that process. When someone experiences overwhelming fear or repeated abuse, stress hormones can interfere with how memories are organized and stored. That's one reason trauma memories don't always feel like regular memories. Some people remember the smallest details, the smell of the room, the sound of the footprints, the pattern of a shirt, the tone of the voice, or the exact words someone said. Others have large gaps in their memories and struggle to remember what happened at all. Some remember pieces of the story but can't put them in order. Others don't remember much until years later when something unexpectedly brings those memories to the surface. It isn't because they're making it up, and it doesn't automatically mean every recovery memory is accurate either. Our memories are reconstructive, especially after trauma, which is why it is important to approach them with care. It's because trauma can change the way memories are stored and experienced. Sometimes the brain isn't trying to help you remember, it's trying to help you survive. And because those memories weren't stored like ordinary experience, something as simple as a smell, a song, a certain place can make your body react as if the danger is happening all over again. Even a touch, like a simple touch to the shoulder, your heart races, your muscle tense, your breathing changes, not because you're choosing to react, but because your brain is trying to protect you based on what it learned long ago. Understanding that can replace shame with compassion. Your brain wasn't failing you. It was doing its best to protect you in the only way it knew how. Now let's talk about the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain right behind your forehead. You, you can think of it as your brain's CEO. It is responsible for helping you think clearly, make decisions, solve problems, plan ahead, control impulse, and ask what's the best choice right now. While life is calm and the prefrontal cortex does an incredible job of helping us respond instead of simply reacting. But during overwhelming fear or trauma, something changes. When your brain believes your survival is at stake, it begins shifting its resource away from that thoughtful reasoning and towards immediate protection. In other words, the survival system takes the driver's seat. It's not the it's not that your prefrontal cortex completely shuts off. It's that it becomes much harder to access while your brain is focused on staying alive. That's why after a traumatic experience, so many people ask themselves questions like, why didn't I leave? Why didn't I fight back? Why didn't I scream? Why didn't I tell someone? Why did I freeze? Those kind of questions often come from the thinking brain. Looking back at the moment when the survival brain was in charge, your brain wasn't asking what's the perfect decision. Lost my train of. It was asking what's most likely to keep me alive. Sometimes that meant fighting, sometimes that meant running, sometimes that meant freezing, sometimes that meant staying quiet, sometimes it meant trying to keep the peace. Those responses weren't signs of weakness. They were automatic survival response that happened in fractions of a second, often before you were consciously aware of making a choice. Understanding this doesn't erase what happened, but it can help release some of the shame people have carried for years. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Maybe the better question is, what was my brain trying to protect me from? Because once you understand that your brain adapts to help you survive, you can begin teaching it that survival is no longer the only way to live. You don't have to stay in survival mode forever. Healing is the process of helping your thinking brain and your nervous system to learn that today is a different day from yesterday. That's your safe that you're safe enough to breathe, safe enough to trust, and safe enough to become. Now let's zoom out from the brain for a moment and talk about the nervous system. The brain is the command center. The nervous system is the communication network that carries those messages throughout your entire body. And here's something fascinating. Your nervous system doesn't just remember facts, it remembers experience, it remembers what felt safe and what didn't. That's why years, even decades after abuse has ended, your body can still react before your mind understands what's happening. Have you ever felt your heart start racing before you knew why? Or your shoulder tense the moment someone raised their voice? Or found yourself holding your breath during an argument? That's your nervous system remembering, not because it wants to keep you stuck, but because it's trying to keep you safe. When your brain senses danger, your nervous system automatically chooses the response it believes gives you the greatest chance of survival. These responses aren't weakness, they're adaptation. Let's walk through them. The first one is fight. Fight says, I need to protect myself. This might look like becoming angry, raising your voice, arguing, being defensive, or feeling the need to stay in control. People often misunderstand someone who's always on guard, but underneath the anger is often fear. The nervous system learned that the best way to survive was to become bigger than the threat. Then there's the flight. Flight says, I need to get away. Some people physically leave, others emotionally check out. Some stay constantly busy. Some throw themselves into work, some jump from relationship to relationship. Others keep moving because slowing down feels unsafe. Sometimes running isn't with your feet, it's with your mind. Next is freeze. Freeze says, if I don't move, maybe I'll survive. This is the response many people struggle to understand. You feel stuck, unable to speak, unable to think, unable to move. People often ask, why didn't I do something? But freezing isn't choosing to do nothing. It's an automatic survival response that happens when the brain believes fighting or escaping won't work. Your body is trying to protect you. Fawn. While fawning wasn't part of the original fight or flight model, many trauma clinics now recognize it as another common survival response. Fawn says, if I keep everyone happy, maybe they won't hurt me. This can look like people pleasing, never saying no, over apologizing, putting everyone else's needs before your own, ignoring boundaries, avoiding conflicts at all costs, or believing your worth comes from making everyone else comfortable. For many survivors, this wasn't manipulation, it was survival. If keeping the peace reduced the chance of being hurt, your nervous system learned to do it exactly like that over and over. Here's what's important to remember. None of these response means there's something wrong with you. The nervous system wasn't choosing your personality. It was choosing the strategy that gave you the best chance of surviving the environment you were in. Blah, 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 blah. Sorry. The beautiful news is this. Survival respond are learned. Blah, blah, blah. Why am I having these difficult tongue twisting sentences here? Survival response are learned, and through healing, safety, supportive relationships, and sometimes trauma informed therapy, your nervous system can learn something new. It can learn that it doesn't have to stay on high alert forever. It can learn that peace is safe, that rest is safe, that healthy love is safe. And little by little, your body can stop preparing for danger that no longer is there. And as you're listening, I want you to pause because I know you might recognize yourself in more than one of these responses. So take a minute. That's completely normal. These aren't boxes that people fit into. Depending on the situation, many of us move between them. Your nervous system uses whatever strategy it believes will keep you safe or the safest in that moment. So give yourself grace. This doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means that your body, your mind is trying to protect you in the best way possible. And sometimes we just don't understand it, but it's keeping you alive. And keeping you alive to your brain and your body means keeping you safe. This is especially true for children. Children can't simply pack a bag, get in the car and leave. They're completely dependent on the adult around them. So instead of changing their environment, their brain adapts to it. If home isn't emotionally or physically safe, the brain begins to believe the world isn't itself safe. And because children aren't trying to make sense of experience they were never meant to carry, they often create beliefs that help them survive. Beliefs like, I have to earn love. I have to stay quiet. I have to be perfect. I have to read everyone's emotion before they speak. I have to keep the peace. I can't trust people. The heartbreaking part is that these don't usually start as conscious choices. They're survival strategies. The brain is consistently asking, what do I have to do to stay safe here? And whatever seems to reduce the danger, it learns. I remember asking myself that no child should ever ask, am I supposed to be taking care of myself? Or are the adults supposed to be taking care of me? Nothing made sense. I couldn't understand why certain things were happening or why they kept happening. Looking back now, I realize there's are parts of my childhoods that I simply don't remember very well. At the time, I didn't think much about it. Life just kept moving. It's almost like if I didn't think about certain things, then maybe they weren't really there. Years later, I was at church and we were asked to share our testimony. I walked in. I already knew exactly what I was going to talk about. I thought I was going to tell the story about running away from home when I was 13 because of everything that was happening. But something unexpected happened. As I began speaking, my story took a completely different direction. Memories I hadn't thought about in years started coming back. Not all at once, but little by little. And they were so vivid. As I shared them, I completely broke down. I couldn't stop crying. It surprised me because I didn't even realize how much pain I had been carrying. It was as if my heart had been holding on to these experiences for years, waiting until I was finally in a place where I felt safe enough to let them out. Looking back now, I think that's what amazes me the most. For years, I've had simply kept moving forward, but in that moment, surrounded by people I trust, with my guard finally down, my inner child finally had the safest feeling to tell her story. That experience taught me something I've never will forget. Sometimes healing doesn't begin because we're forced ourselves to remember. Sometimes healing begins because for the first time, our mind, our body, our nervous system believes we're safe enough to feel. And when that happens, those tears weren't a sign that I was falling apart. They were a sign that something inside me was finally beginning to heal and clean. That actually, I don't know. It still gets me every now and then when I think about it, especially like memories that I thought, I don't know, memories I didn't think I had been carrying for that long or feeling that way until I started releasing what I was thinking or saying. Those tears that I couldn't control them. I couldn't stop it from falling. I was still telling my story, but I was having problems breathing and, trying to collect myself. But it was such an amazing feeling to tell the story. And I actually felt like my inner child was finally heard. Not just heard, but safe. And it still chokes me up just thinking about it. But I was always that kid. Oh, whatever room I went into, I started reading the room. Called hypervigilance. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly knew someone was upset? Not because they said anything, but because you noticed the way they closed the door, the look on their face, the sigh they let out, the way they set something on the counter, or the silence that suddenly filled the room before anyone else even realized something was wrong. You already felt it. It's that, if that sounds familiar to you, you may have experience something called hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is when your brain and the nervous system become highly alert to possible signs of danger. It's like your inner radar never completely turned off. You're constantly scanning your environment, reading body languages, listening to changes in someone's voices, watching people's moods, trying to predict what might happen next. Why? Because at one point in your life, those small details may have helped you stay safe. If you grew up in an unpredictable home, knowing the difference between a happy sigh and an angry sigh, or recognizing someone's footstep before they reached your bedroom may have helped you prepare yourself. Your brain learned pay attention because the smallest change could matter. It isn't a superpower, it's a survival skill. And while that skill may have protect you as a child, it can become exhausting as an adult because now your nervous system may still be searching for danger, even in places where you're finally safe. That's why understanding your brain matters. It helps replace judgment with compassion. Years later, those survival strategies don't simply disappear. The environment may change, but the brain often continues to use the same blueprint it learned years ago. That's why some adults who experience abuse or chronic adversity may find themselves struggling to trust people, overthinking every conversation, reading into every text, feeling abandoned, people pleasing even when they're exhausted, apologizing for things that aren't their fault, avoiding conflicts at all costs, letting boundaries be crossed, or on the other hand, becoming emotionally numb because feeling everything became too overwhelming. You might expect rejection even from people who genuinely love you. You may keep people at a distance because vulnerability feels dangerous, or you may hold on too tightly because losing someone feels unbearable. If you're if you've ever looked at yourself and thought, "Why am I like this?" I hope today helps answers that question with compassion. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, not because you're beyond healing, but because your brain learned survival. The beautiful thing about understanding this is that it shifts the question from what's wrong with me to what happened to me and what was my brain trying to do to protect me. That question doesn't excuse harmful behaviors or remove responsibilities for how we treat others, but it does replace shame with understanding. And understanding is often where healing begins because once you understand why your brain adapt, you can begin teaching it that it is safe to live differently, safe to trust, safe to rest, safe to love, safe to become. So, after everything we talked about today, I want to leave you with some hope because if this episode ended with survival, it wouldn't be the whole story. Here's the beautiful news. One of the most incredible things about the brain is something called neuroplasticity. It's a big word that simply means this: your brain can change. Every healthy relationship, every new experience, every safe conversation, every healthy boundary, every counseling session, every prayer, every moment you choose a different response is helping your brain build new pathways. The same brain that learned fear can learn safety. The same brain that learned chaos can learn peace. The same nervous system that stayed on high alert to protect you can learn that it doesn't have to carry the weight of yesterday forever. Healing doesn't happen overnight. There isn't a switch that suddenly turns survival mode off. Healing happens one moment at a time, one conversation at a time, one safe relationship at a time, one healthy choice at a time, one prayer at a time. Healing doesn't erase your story. It doesn't pretend the abuse never happened. It doesn't remove every scar, but healing can change what your story means moving forward. Your past may your past may explain you, but it doesn't have to define you. Your brain adapted because it was trying to protect you. Now it has the ability to adapt again, this time towards peace, towards hope, and towards the person you're becoming. And that's one of the greatest gifts God gave us, a brain capable of learning, growing, changing, and healing. I also believe something incredibly beautiful. God understood trauma. When I read scripture, I don't see a God who ignores pain. I see a God who steps into it. Throughout the Bible, we meet people carrying grief, fear, betrayal, abandonment, loss, and deep emotional wounds. Think about Joseph, who was betrayed by his own brother, David, who lived through seasons of fear and betrayal, Helgar, who experienced abuse and abandonment in the wilderness, Job, who endured unimaginable loss. Even Jesus himself experienced betrayal, rejection, injustice, and suffering. God never minimized their pain. He met them in it. He walked with them through it. He brought hope into places that once felt hopeless. Psalms 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." I want you to notice something. The verse doesn't say the Lord is close to those who have it all together. It doesn't say the Lord is close only after you're healed. It says he is close to the brokenhearted, right there in the middle of the pain. Maybe you spent years believing your trauma made you too broken for God. I want to gently remind you today, your wounds don't push him away. They draw him near. God isn't asking you to pretend your story never happened. He is asking you, he isn't asking you to ignore your pain. And he certainly isn't asking you to carry it alone. He's inviting you into healing, not because he's disappointed in who you've been, but because he loves you too much to leave you trapped in survival mode. Maybe today's your first step. Instead of having all the answers, maybe it's simply believing that healing is possible, that your story isn't over, that your past doesn't get the final word. Wow, that was a tongue. And that the same God who created your brain with the ability to adapt also walks beside you as you learn to heal, because that's what becoming is all about. Not pretending we've never been hurt, but allowing God to transform what hurts us into something that helps us heal. And some days, maybe even help someone else heal too. If today's episode spoke to your heart, I don't want you to walk away feeling overwhelmed. I want you to walk away with hope. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens one small decision at a time. So here's where I would encourage you to begin. First, start noticing your reaction without judging yourself. The next time you become anxious, angry, fearful, or feel the urge to shut down, pause for just a moment. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" try asking, "What is my brain trying to protect me from right now?" That one question can replace shame with curiosity, and curiosity is often where healing begins. Second, remember that not every alarm your brain sounds off means you're actually in danger. Sometimes your nervous system is responding to yesterday while your mind is living in today. Learning to pause, to breathe, and to gently remind yourself, "I am safe in the moment," can help your brain begin building new pathways. Third, find emotional Find emotionally safe people. Healing rarely happens completely alone. God created us for connection. Healthy relationship helps teach our nervous system something many of us never learned growing up, that we can be fully seen, fully known, and still deeply loved. Fourth, if it's available to you, consider working with a trauma informed mental health professional. Therapy isn't about proving you're broken. It's about giving your brain, your body, and your heart the support they deserve as you heal. Asking for help isn't weakness. Sometimes it's one of the bravest things you'll ever do. And finally, give yourself compassion. For years, you may have blamed yourself for the way you reacted. Today, I hope you see those reactions a little differently. Your brain wasn't trying to ruin your life, it was trying to protect it. And maybe it did exactly what it needed to do to help you survive. But surviving isn't where your story has to end. Now, you get to learn something new. You get to learn safety. You get to learn trust. You get to learn peace. You get to learn that love doesn't have to hurt. And little by little, your nervous system can begin believing it too. Before we end this episode, I want you to hear this, especially if no one has ever said it to you before. You are not weak because you survived. You are not difficult because your nervous system adapted. You are not broken because your brain learned to protect you. You are not too damaged to heal. And you are certainly not beyond God's love. The child inside of you did whatever they needed to do to survive. Today, the adult inside of you has the opportunity to help that child heal, not by pretending the past never happened, but by reminding them you're safe now. Healing doesn't erase your story. It gives you a story. It gives your story a different ending. It transforms pain into wisdom, fear into courage, survival into freedom. And maybe, just maybe, one day, your story will become the very thing that gives someone else permission to begin healing too. Thank you for trusting me with your heart today. If this episode encouraged you to, and share it with someone who might need to hear these words, because sometimes one conversation, one act of understanding, or one person saying, I believe you and you're not alone, God bless, can be the change the direction of someone healing's journey forever. As always, my beautiful souls, remember this. Your trauma may be part of your story, but it was never meant to become your identity. So keep healing, keep growing, keep becoming. I'll see you on the next time on Becoming with Erika. Thank you and God bless.